Welcome aboard. We're making our way to the studio. Michael Mixer's a new patron to the page, one of the producers now, and he requested that there be a video that kind of shows how to do transitions. He and I both use the same editing software, which is Final Cut Pro, and Final Cut Pro on its own without any additional third-party plugins gives you a lot of great options as far as how to transition from one clip to the next clip. If you've seen my videos in the past, sometimes I like change it up. Sometimes I use these little creative zoom in from one clip and then into the next one. And if I do that, it's usually for a specific reason. For example, if I'm on the ground, like in the most recent video where it's Tom and I flying, I'm standing on the ground, I'm filming Tom up in the air, and then it goes to a shot of me flying in the air. And for that, it's like, it makes sense, that sort of a transition, rather than just splicing a clip and then bumping them up to each other without any transition. What I did, once again, looking up in the sky, and I'm gonna go to the next shot is gonna be me sitting in the paramotor, and it's kind of like looking down. So it makes sense to do one of those zoom into the clip and then kind of like zoom back out as I'm looking down. So transitions should have a reason why you use a transition. I would strongly suggest don't use a transition, just for the sake of using a transition, like just because you had it there. Try to be intentional with all of your transitions. So I'll show you in the computer here in just a bit. A lot of people can overdo it. There are definitely going to be times where it just simply makes sense to do a cut, a simple, clean cut. And just because you transition, keep this in mind, just because you transition the visual, the video part of it, you can also transition the audio, right? So one of the things that I commonly do is I will start the audio from the clip that is not yet seen, and then I'll start it before you even see it. That way it's kind of like the audio suggests that the clip is about to change. For example, let me see if I can think of something right now as far as how to make this work. You see what I did there is I kind of like right there, I started the clip with the audio before showing the video. And it's one of the creative things that you can do that kind of just makes somebody say, oh, well, your video is a little bit different, or there was some effort that went into it. You guys can get as creative as possible, but I'm gonna show you in Final Cut Pro, and let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Yes, now I can hear me. Sweet. So I can hear me through this, and I'm going to open Final Cut Pro. I love Final Cut Pro. It's my favorite. Look at all this random footage from flying along. One of the things as I open up the project that I will be using for this tutorial is I film a lot. Just because I film it doesn't mean I necessarily share it. I tend to share more with the patrons as time goes on, because I can use things for examples on how to do certain tricks in video editing, etc. Anyways, this is the clip that you guys just saw, and I've got it set up running through a couple different pieces of software so that you can actually hear it while I'm still able to narrate through this microphone. So here's what I'm going to do. I already imported this clip. We're focusing on transitions. I mentioned a spot on how I like to often transition the audio before I transition the video. Why? Well, I think that when you transition the audio first, it can kind of suggest to the viewers that there's this change coming. Remember, all of this may seem like silly or irrelevant or just tedious work, but at the end of the day, if you make a video that's fun and enjoyable for others to watch, then I think you accomplish your goal. Hey, I like doing it, and I like going back and watching my videos as well. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm looking at the timeline. I'm looking for that clip where I'm stopping and I'm thinking. This was intentional, by the way. I was like, let me give the perfect example of how you can transition audio before you transition the specific clip itself. So here we are in the clip, and I want to make it so that the audio from this section,
See what I did there is I kind of like
starts playing before you actually see me. So let me just go back and play it out really quick.
Let me see if I can think of something right now as far as how to make this work.
Right here. That's where I want to cut it in.
You see what I did there?
Boom. So I'm going to go ahead and click the B button on the keyboard, and that brings out my blade tool, as you can see right here. It's a red blade. And I am going to cut it. Cut it. There. Let's try that. And then I'm going to hit the A button to bring it back to my cursor so I don't just end up chopping up all this footage as I'm trying to click on it. And then I'm going to use the right clicker, the right mouse button, and go on down to expand audio components. What that does is separates the audio from the video. They're still attached, right? They're still attached, but if I slide this or if I just slide the audio, I can get rid of some of the audio or extend some of the audio. But that's not what I'm looking to do. I am looking to get rid of some of this video right there, just like that. Now what I'm referencing is down here. I can see on the waveforms where the talking starts. Right down here, you can visually see sound. Isn't that cool? So I'm going to drag this clip, and as you see, the sound is like kind of like starting to butt up against this. That's where the talking stops on the last clip. I want the viewer to see this moment of thinking before it jumps into me talking again. But the talking from here is still connected down here. I just don't want the viewers to be literally in timeout waiting for me to think of my thought. So I'm going to start explaining it while still letting the viewer see that there's a moment of thought taking place. This is just an example, obviously. But it's a great example if you were filming your own paramotor video or something like that, where you want to still capture the reality of a situation, which may be like a pause of thought, but not make somebody have to wait there in that pause. Then you can start the audio of the actual completed thought while still showing that there was time taken to consider that thought right here. So I'm going to go back and play it out. Now you're going to see that instead of just being in this moment of silence, you get to hear what I'm going to say beforehand.
Let me see if I can think of something right now as far as how to make this work. You see what I did there is I kind of like right there.
Boom, shaka-laka laka. That is a transition, my friends. That's a transition where you don't even need to necessarily change you don't have a visual transition. That's an audio transition, and I think that is very professional, and I think it's something that on YouTube it's taking it a step above the rest, because you're not doing the obvious thing, which is like, look back here at the screen. All right, over here on the screen, here are all the transitions that come with Final Cut Pro 10, right? There's a bunch of them. A lot of them are stupid. It doesn't matter if it's Final Cut Pro 10 or Adobe Premiere 10, but I'm just going to drop a couple on here to show you. For example, if I was to do something like, oh, hello, got a notification. If I was to do something like this, right? Now I've got this transition I just dropped on there. To the average person, this is where it gets complicated, because some people, they will see all of these transitions at their disposal, and so they'll just drop them on the transition where there could be a transition. But you're better than that. Trust me, you're better than that. But here's an example of
see what I did there is I kind of like right there.
Ooh, no, come on, guys. We're not going to do something like that. I'm going to go over to this clip and just hit the delete button. Click. And not to say that there isn't something that could make for a cool transition there, or an appropriate transition. You know, the most common transitions in cinematography are just going to be your simple dissolves, or you've got your famous, think of Star Wars, right? You're thinking of Star Wars with me, right? Star Wars is famous for the wiping of the screen, but Star Wars owns that, so don't take it unless you're making a Star Wars spoof, and then that's intentional. But there are other transitions available. So let's just say the simple cross dissolve is basically fading from one shot to the next.
Right there.
That transition wouldn't work there, right? It's
you see what I did there is I kind of like right there.
No, a dissolve would be good. So if you're showing a setting, right? So if you're filming a paramotor video and it's really important to establish a shot at the beginning of a video. That's just common knowledge for cinematography. I sometimes don't do it because it's YouTube, and I like to lean that way. For the efforts, for the videos that I'm actually putting a lot of effort in, I will do that. However, occasionally I don't. So But if I was really trying for, hold on. Most inconvenient time. I will call him back. That's my best friend. He's just getting out of the Army. I was best friends with him in the Army. He's getting out after 20 years. He was there when I got injured in Afghanistan, and he's been a huge support. Back to my Final Cut Pro tutorial before he so rudely interrupted me. All right. So across dissolve, what I was saying is establishing a shot. It's super important to establish a setting. You don't just want your viewers to be like all of a sudden in a paramotor video without having any clue to what time of day it is, where they're at, etc. So across dissolve would be good is if you're like filming, say here in El Paso, you're filming the mountains, and then you go to a close-up of a cactus. These are pretty stationary objects, which are the type of times that you would want to use a cross dissolve. It's fitting because you're just kind of blending it together. The landscape, everything like that is being blended together. There are other transitions like the one I had mentioned before. I'll show you if I haven't already deleted that project. But basically, what you can do is did I delete it? I think I deleted it, guys. I'm super sorry. But the zooming transitions. I'll drop the zooming transition on this spot right here. This seems to be the spot of the day. If I go over here, this is a third-party plugin, by the way, so it didn't come with it, but it is free. If you go to Ryan Nangel's website, I'll try and think of it and remind me to comment it in the Patreon comment box if I don't do it by the time I publish this. But if I go to zoom in, this is like the time that this zoom right here, I'm going to play it first.
Is I kind of like
zoomed in.
Right
Ooh, there. It actually looks kind of cool. If you use it, I'm not going to knock you, and I don't think other people will knock you either, but it's still really not the most appropriate time to use it. That zoom in tool is great for when you're doing a paramotor video, and like I was using when I prefaced this tutorial, if I'm on the ground and I'm filming a paramotor up in the sky and then all of a sudden I want to bring the viewer up to that paramotor, it would be kind of cool to zoom in like into that shot, and then all of a sudden it's the onboard camera and woohoo, look at that. That was exciting. People are going to feel more like they just got teleported up onto that paramotor. Pretty cool thing. That's where transitions can be
kind
powerful.
of like right there.
So
you see what I did there is I kind of like
wham. Okay. So the other thing you can do with transitions is they don't necessarily have to be the default length transition time from start to finish that it is when you initially drop it onto it. You can go back over to this cursor and you can drag it so that that stretched out zoom into it would probably be more appropriate because of the amount of distance you're traveling, and it kind of is that teleport feel is opposed to a snap. Like if it's really short, it's like a snap into it. You want the biggest key to transitions. I think one of the most important things when it comes to transitions is probably just being very methodical at the point in time that you actually splice the clip. Some people don't realize that. I mean, it should almost be like playing a note of music, right? You're not hearing a sound, but there's a cadence to chopping the video. If you're transitioning, like in this video that I've made with Leandra, let me go ahead and open that up, okay? I'm going to show you that before I drag this video on too long. But a lot of my tutorial style stuff is not specifically how to do it. There's a ton of YouTube videos on transitions 101. But I like to think of the mindset of the individual who's creating the content and trying to help encourage you to see it from your most creative perspective, because at the end of the day, doing all of this is storytelling, and a transition isn't going to make your story a story. It's the story itself. But I think the timing of a story, the dun, 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 sounds kind of crazy, but really, there's a cadence to a story. Okay, so as said, I'm going to open up the video. Shh, don't tell anybody what I'm working on here. This is for you patrons only. Damn it. This video is kind of tough because I screwed up by not turning the onboard microphone on while recording for the first. Okay, learning to fly with Leandra. Opening. All right, so here's some other great examples. So remember, get creative with your transitions. And creative doesn't mean just dropping a default transition onto it, right? So here from the beginning, I'm literally going to avoid dropping any transitions onto it because I feel as though I'm going to start playing it out. As I'm playing through this, I'm like, boom. These are transitions that don't require, just like in the movies. If you go to and watch a movie, they're not transitioning from clip to clip to clip. They are just timing it. And right here's where some of the sound starts. I'm going to turn some of that sound down because because I messed up. Forget, there may be children watching. Here, I'm just cutting from clip to clip, and I'm not going to add any other transitions onto that. There is a spot coming up, though, where I do get creative with the transitions. Adding in sound effects here, as you may see, this is just like the very early stages of this video. It's more, I go through and I lay out everything, and then I go through and do all the fine details. But over here, here's part of what I mean by timing. Like, where does it make sense for you to make the transition? Here, I'm going to flip, and it just kind of made sense to go from there because of the angle of the camera. It moves from her hand up into Parker's face where it just makes sense. Boom, now it's over the shoulder. See that? Why would you want to put a transition on that? Boom, look at this. It's almost like I have two cameras, right? So here I have one camera, and I'm just going to do a simple cut. That's what it's called. It's just doing a cut from one clip to the next clip without adding any special transitions onto it. So here it is. It looks like I have a two-person camera because I'm going from looking at Parker as a subject to now over Parker's shoulder looking at Leandra. That's magic. I didn't have two cameras, just one. Something you can do with your camera too is just kind of run around the subject and as if you had two cameras, but you just then later on in post here in Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere, you just cut the clip and make it look as though the conversation, like you had two cameras. I mean, it takes some getting used to, but you'll become a master of it soon. Boom, right here, just a simple cut to where it made sense. Like the viewer's not going to know that there was only one camera, but you know. You just don't tell anybody. Okay, so here is the last transition piece I'm going to give you because we covered transitioning the audio. We talked about all the plugins that can, not all of them, but the fact that these programs like Final Cut Pro come with transitions that you can just drop on the timeline. And lastly, I want to talk about like just one of the other ways to creatively transition. So let's look back here at the screen. Here we see Leandra. She's about to run forward here. There's like this dramatic boom, boom. Oh, it looks, and now she's ready to go and she's about to run. But I'm going to transition from this angle to my invisible second camera. Don't let me confuse you. It's one camera. This is 2 different times it was filmed. She did more than one, but it makes it look as though you've got 2 cameras on a 1-camera budget, if you know what I mean. And how did I transition it? Check this out. Whoa, the glider. It revealed what the next clip was. So here, I'm going to show you without taking 10 hours to explain how to use control points and keyframes and all this other stuff, because trust me, you play with it and you'll figure it out. If you need help figuring out this, call me, text me, Facebook message me, do what you need to do to get a hold of me, and eventually we'll get on a call and we'll discuss how this happens. But as this comes up, you can see right here, the glider comes up, and then boom, it's revealing frame by frame. Look at those points I drew. Frame by frame, the opposite angle of the shot. So here's those points, and they all get drawn in individually frame by frame. And once again, that's a reveal transition. For this, you have to do the specific points where as the glider is moving up, you have to reposition the frame, not only the line itself. You have to reposition every dot because the glider is a piece of fabric. It's not just a solid object. Like there are certain places if you pay really close attention to the third of the screen to the right, see those points? They're actually not staying the same because the glider's fabric and it moves. And even though it plays out really quickly, we don't want people to say, oh, it looked like there was a line there that just moved up. Not that they would, but because we're like hyper critical on every detail, we will follow it through to the end until it's completely out of frame and you've got this new shot that is just a lot of fun. It's like if you were there. I'm going to play it out. Check that out. That was a lot of fun. And I cannot wait to get this video out to people. It's a pain in my rear end. I think the plan is Leandra and I are going to set up a little place in the studio, do kind of like a fun little interview paramotor podcast where it's not actually the paramotor podcast. It's for the YouTube channel. But these, my friends, are just some of the things that you'll see now that I've got the microphone and I feel all official on the YouTube videos. And I've done this before. A lot of the times they go unnoticed. Sometimes they're like, hey, I liked your video, but I don't know why I liked it. Well, maybe I hope at the end of the day somebody was like, oh, that's what it was. I see what you did there. But seriously though, once again, if you have any other questions about transitions or just trying to figure it out a little bit more on your own, this video was for you guys. I hope you appreciated it. It's a it's a totally time-consuming process, but I love it. I love doing this, and I love being able to share with you guys. If you have any other suggestions as patrons, because you are supporting me and my ability to be able to create these videos, please let me know if there's something you want to know about YouTube videos that may benefit the group. If it's just kind of like an individual question, reach out to me and I'll help you figure it out. Yeah. Until next time, be sure to drop your questions, your thoughts in the comment box. Stay tuned for the Paramotor Podcast next episode. Not this week, but the following week. We're pretty slammed with the with getting the graphic design done and wrapping up some of these videos. And by we, I mean myself, Clint, Tom, Mitch, and guest speakers Leandra as well is now part of the Paramotor Podcast. Until next time, thank you all so much for your support, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.